Tuesday, July 14th edition of the Carolina Weather Video. A lot to talk about today. Had a couple of complexes of storms roll through the region yesterday and more on the way for today. That's a look at the Beach Mountain Parkway cam, courtesy of resortcams.com. And during the 5 o'clock hour, as I'm cutting this video, the next round of storms bearing down on the mountain zones. I'll show you that in more detail here in just a second. It was a hot day yesterday, too, once you got, say, I-77 and over toward the Sandhills and points west. A little cooler over the northeastern North Carolina, but 100 in Columbia, low to mid-90s across the Triad viewing area, and Charlotte viewing area highs in the mid and even a couple of upper 90s on the board yesterday. So a hot day, and then that big round of storms arrived late in the afternoon and the evening. These are 5 o'clock hour temperatures this morning. It is warm and humid as we're beginning this Tuesday. I thought this was interesting. Wanted to show you the visible satellite perspective throughout the day yesterday. And that big complex of storms that wound up moving through the Piedmont zones yesterday evening and into last night, that originated up in Minnesota early yesterday morning. I was mentioning last week that we would be getting into this northwesterly flow aloft early this work week, and that has certainly been the case. And we've had those big complexes of storms rolling our way. This is what the radar perspective looked like as we went through yesterday afternoon and yesterday evening. And we certainly had some intense thunderstorms roll through portions of the region. The storms most intense around the Triad area as we went through the evening hours. Same story for a lot of the Charlotte metro area. And had a lot of wind damage reports. Let me highlight a few of those wind damage reports. First of all, look at the volume of reports. Some tornadic activity, a ton of wind damage reports, and some hail involved too, all the way from the Midwest through the Carolinas. And there's a look at the Triad viewing area overview, and I'll hit a couple of these storm reports from yesterday. You got up into northern Forsyth County, numerous trees and power lines down across the northern half of the county around Danbury, trees blown down. You had at the Deep River site there in Guilford County, a 74-mile-per-hour wind gust. Randolph County, you had some 1.3-inch diameter hail in Asheboro, and also some trees down. Unfortunately, one on a home near Seagrove, a little bit before 10 o'clock yesterday. And down around the Charlotte area, south of town, you had some hail reports there along Interstate 77, some penny-sized hail and some 1-inch diameter hail, and also some wind damage there in northern South Carolina. Let me also go a little bit further to the northwest here. Even though you don't see anything plotted here, I got a report from a friend of mine there in the eastern parts of Gaston County. Some tree damage there, and some wind damage, that type of deal. And really, again, there was a lot of that as we saw these storms rolling through. There's some wind reports from the mountains. Just an active go of it. And now, this is the current radar perspective as I'm cutting the video. Again, I'm cutting this at 5:38 this morning. There's that next round of storms rolling in. This is the next thunderstorm complex rolling in. And it looks like we kind of have a setup here where the best instability is back in this corridor. And so that's probably where your most intense storms are going to be with this next wave. But anybody across the Piedmont, certainly fair game to get another round of thunderstorms through this morning. And then we'll watch for what happens this afternoon. These are some images from near Lenore yesterday. Some very electric thunderstorm activity. Thought that was a neat compilation of pictures there. All right, so there's the high-resolution modeling. And there'll be another complex of storms probably develop off to the west. That will then roll in here this afternoon and this evening. So just an active setup for today and into this evening and tonight. Here's the local high-resolution modeling. This morning wave of rain and storms weakening as it moves through. And then here comes the next wave arriving for the afternoon and the evening hours. We do have an enhanced risk of severe storms in parts of the region, that orange shading. And the bottom line is damaging winds are your biggest severe weather threat. Could certainly be some large hail, though, and there is a threat of an isolated tornado or two. And tons of lightning with any of these storms as they roll on through. Now, a much quieter weather setup begins for tomorrow. Highs in the upper 80s to mid-90s, depending on where you are around the region for Wednesday. Thursday looks great with this drier air mass settling in. Your highs in the mid to upper 80s in many North Carolina spots Thursday. Dew point temperatures pretty high today, but watch the drier air take hold, at least temporarily, for a while, and by especially Thursday. So really some pretty good weather later on in the work week after another unsettled weather day today. Now, in the tropics, we actually do have a tropical storm. That is Tropical Storm Claudette. They're 310 miles south of Halifax, Nova Scotia, and now racing northeast at 20 miles per hour. This will continue to head toward the Canadian Maritimes. This will not threaten the U.S. at all, and it's only going to be a pretty weak system up there in the Canadian Maritime areas. All right, that is it for today's edition of the Carolina Weather Video. Everybody have a great day, and God bless.